interesting thing the other day about, I don't know who this yogi was. You might be able to work it out from the anecdote. Bertrand Russell, the intellectual and early CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament pioneer, was like towards the end of his life, I think, like real committed to that whole CND deal, and he was visited by a yogi who said to him, look, you know, what does it matter if we get rid of nuclear weapons? We are still the consciousness that created nuclear weapons. It will find some other outlet. What we need to address is the inner space, this intention, this attention, the desire to create that kind of technology. As long as we have that, we won't resolve the issue. The nuclear weapon is a symbol, an emblem, an expression of that phenomena, of that frequency. So we should address that. And Bertrand Russell said, no, let's just get rid of nuclear weapons. This is a really significant issue. I ain't got time to get into your mystical, bloody Vedic approach to it. Let's get rid of the weapons. But you know, sort of, I think it's possible to agree with both men in that instance. And like that all that. You know, the people that criticise me, people that adore me, they're responding really to themselves. They're responding to their own consciousness. They're responding to their own reality. And so I try to... Now I know what my intention is. I know where my attention is. And that is what defines my life. I try not to allow my experience of reality to be too diluted by other people's input. I mean, I love the approval, and I'm not so keen on the condemnation. But like, also, I look a lot at the source. I look a lot where it comes from, and like, you know, I don't mind Fox News hating me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I can't change who I am for Fox News. What would I become?
See the enlightenment, realized state that we'd like everybody to be in, and then we have this kind of mess, this quandary that we're in right now. So how do we make those little bridging steps?
I think we attain it within ourselves initially, and we communicate these ideas on a personal level. Spirituality, I can get, as you've just heard, I can be very verbose and loquacious on the topic, but really it just means be nice. It ain't hard, just be nice. You meet a homeless person, be nice. You get into a cab, be nice to the person. Don't see yourself as adversarial. Then the revolution has already occurred. People fear Armageddon, don't they? People fear the apocalypse, don't they? But for some, Armageddon has already occurred. The homeless people that walk our streets live already in a post-apocalyptic world. Armageddon will surely come for each of us, our own personal Armageddon, when each of us die. Isn't it redundant whether everyone simultaneously dies if each of us will individually die? Regardless, Armageddon is coming. So whilst these cataclysmic principles apply on the individual level...
people who think we might be able to extend the human lifespan through biotechnology, merging with machines.
Yeah, that's all cool, man. But what I'm saying is that what we have to do is individually reach like our own personal alignment. We have to do the principles are all there. You know this. The principles are already there. We achieve detachment through meditation. We no longer then we are no once we can achieve enlightenment, and once we put our satisfaction beyond our individual needs, we are no longer malleable by the pre-existing system. The system requires us to be a selfish little consumerist pods. Once we go, oh, I ain't not bothered about that. It's easier for me because I've been famous now. I know that's boring. I've been rich now. I know that's boring. I fuck loads of people now. I know that's boring. I took loads of drugs now. No, that's boring. So all that's left is spiritual enlightenment. That's all that's left. Awareness is all. We must be aware. We must be aware of reality. Remember, we receive reality through a series of filters. The senses themselves are a filtration system. Remember the limitations of the eyes, only able to see between ultraviolet and infrared light. Remember the limitations of the ears, only hearing a certain frequency. Remember the limitations of language, placing everything into a semantic, syntactic, symbolic formula. Remember that reality is too much for us to stand, so we take it piecemeal in tiny chunks. To experience some true resonant reality, we have to journey within. The only language that matters truly is love. This Swami fella that I know out in Mumbai told me of this girl that once visited him. Her mother was pregnant. She was going to have another daughter. When the kid was born, she was she was paraplegic, double disabled, and the little girl, she was disappointed. 10 years old, she had certain expectations of what this sister would be like, and when the sister was born all paralyzed, she's like, my expectations have not been met, I'm sad. And she was resentful for a while, resentful with her parents, resentful with her sister, resentful with God. But in time she recognized that if you got frustrated or angry with the little sister, she didn't understand. If you spoke to the sister angrily, she didn't understand. It didn't mean nothing to her. But if you were loving to her, if you made her laugh, her little face lit up, you know. ultimately, the only thing that we understand is love. We don't need any of its permutations. We're going to have cultures. Culture is our operating system, and we do need operating systems. But we must remember that our essence is love. Return to it within yourself and express it to all others will be fine. We are at the summit of our evolution. We're 38% identical to bananas, DNA-wise. We're 67% identical to earthworms, DNA-wise. 98% identical to chimpanzees, DNA-wise. So what we share together is infinitely greater than what separates us. To be at the summit of our evolutionary possibility, we have to live beyond the dead model of our animal selves, of our urgent primal selves. We have to be at the apex of evolution. We have to be in the moment. We can't live in the dead animal self of urges and acquisitiveness. These are the things we have to transcend moment to moment. This is what I think is important, to live in the apex. See, like these old ideas about individualism, we've got to transcend them. The distinctions between you and I, we know that they are an illusion. We share the same DNA. There are invisible energies that are passing between us, the same way as this used to have Wi-Fi before some idiot tipped water on it. These invisible energies have to be harnessed and accessed because it's the only truth that matters. As long as we prioritize this material truth over spiritual truths, we will live in tyranny because we are living in an illusion. You know, we've all got our own personal truths. Now, there are certain principles that will help align us all. Just be true to your essential self. Don't f*** other people over. Now, part of that, yeah, it is a bit annoying test. Do you know what I think is really important? It's like, you know, like, say when I was a kid, it was all like apartheid and all that sort of stuff, and I sort of would pretend to be sort of angry about it, and obviously I agree with complete racial integration and racial equality, but actually when I was at home at night, I didn't really think, oh, bloody apartheid, I can't sleep. You know, it didn't bother me really. But say when I got ripped off, like a bus driver wouldn't give me my fare back, or when there's an ATM charge of $3.50, I'm prepared to go and kill. You know? Or when Apple changed their charger, you're like, hey, you bastards! Why'd you have to keep changing the chargers for? You know, that stuff really affects me and impacts me. You know, so what I think we have to do is recognise we're in our own lives. We've been ripped off. They're ripping us off left and right. You know, like we recognise where those things are, recognise that those things are not necessary. And when people tell you there is no alternative, look at the people who are telling you that. There's no alternative to this system that happens to benefit me. Oh, that's convenient. We've looked at all the alternatives, and the best one is me in a big castle. Oh, thanks. Well, we'll stop thinking. Debate over. Is that certain cultural narratives are promoted that are beneficial only to elites. These cultural narratives are not true. We need to realign the cultural narratives that we promote. So if there are, the only reality that is relevant is we have this planet. There are this many people on the planet. There are these resources. Any system that is in conflict with the even distribution of the resources to the people is a disingenuous and illusory system. All these things are just ideas. America, just an idea. England, just an idea. Karate, just an idea. Wednesday, just an idea. The literature around spirituality, whether it's the sort of elegant simplicity of Lao Tzu, or the charming voluptuousness of the Vedas, the passion of Catholicism, the potency of Islam, everyone is saying, we are all one. We are all one. Don't get confused. Don't get confused by your own conflict. Don't get confused by the contradictions in your own anatomical and biological drive. Don't get confused. Breathe, take a moment, look inside yourself. There's something else there. There's an awareness behind your fear. There's an awareness behind your desire. There's an awareness. And if you strengthen your association, your connection to that awareness, it's possible for you to your life has changed. Your life has changed in that awareness. And I think it transmits and it connects. I think perhaps the parameters that we currently regard the world as defined by, me in my little individual body with my little individual voice and individual haircut and individual opinions and views and beliefs and these words that I'm saying, is a temporary expression of a much more potent thing. And if were we to have different eyes, different senses, we would see the vibrations leaking and bleeding and glowing out and tangling amidst one another in some constant, infinite, fractal whir
of interconnectivity.
God, in spite of what we think, we are literally connected. We're literally made of the same things. Carbon-based life forms breathe in the air in harmony with the planet.
Because when I talk to someone, right, I read a beautiful thing. Do you know that writer Emmett Fox? I think he's like a Christian writer. He wrote a book called Sermon on the Mount. You know, like sort of, I guess, I don't know, probably the 30s or 40s, I guess it was written. And in it he said, like, don't judge people. Like, he was talking about the sermon of the principles in Christ's Sermon on the Mount. Don't judge people, he said. You know, judge not lest you be judged. Right? And he's saying, well, what that meant is that when someone's behaviour is unappealing to us, when we think they're obnoxious or unattractive, that in them, the Christ in them is calling out to you to be saved, calling out to you who are awake to be saved. There's no value in us judging them or being negative, and to see them not as manifestations of darkness or as evil, but confused and conflicted, and that within them, the Christ in them is calling out to be saved. It said in this book, we are all part of the one living garment of God, and there's no value in judging other people.
You cannot define yourself in reference to other external coordinates. You must define yourself internally with your relationship with a higher entity. Think of yourself as a manifestation of some higher thing, some higher frequency. This is the visible realization. And you know that because you can't see atoms, can you? And you certainly can't see the forces that hold atoms together. There, in the micro-quantum world, Richard, lie the answers to everything. We can't understand it with our logical, rational minds, but we feel it intuitively. Get yourself in alignment with that stuff and you beam like the sun.